en die skinderbekke is hier, en die verraaiers is hier. Laat die pers en die skinderbekke en die verraaiers weet, dis klaar, ons is keelvol.
My guest is a South African photographer, videographer, and media creator, the popular Afrikaans podcaster Rian Roux. In his words, Rian has created his podcast for ordinary people, saying that educated people and leaders often get out of touch with the simple, uneducated people on the street, like himself, in his words. Rian, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Ron. Much appreciated.
Yeah. What a battle is it again? Afrikaners fighting Afrikaners. Tell me about it. It's not new. Not new Afrikaners fighting Afrikaners.
No. Afrikaners versus Afrikaners is a fight that's existed for as long as the language has existed. And I think it will continue for a long time still. It is the same as it is in any society. There will always be groupings. And but it's all about the representation of the identity. And some people that say, but you are taking this representation away from us. And that's where the problem comes in my opinion, when people like AfriForum and Solidariteit are told by others that they are taking away that identity, while in fact those groups, as I see them and I've always viewed them, fight for their people, their members. And what a lot of people don't realize about a group like Solidariteit has existed for, I think, going on 25 years. And they have, I'm lying. They've existed since the 1900s, 1902, plus minus, in various forms. They represent 400,000 families, which equates to around 2 million people. And that is what I feel a lot of people do not realize, especially when it comes to a small group like these people. And I'm not fighting the specific individual. I'm fighting the idea, the things that they went and told the rest of the world, which is some of the contents in this letter is blatant lies. For instance, let me give you an example. This whole thing about the genocide. Not Solidarity nor AfriForum ever used the term genocide.
Yeah.
It's a term that was actually used by, might be corrected, by Donald Trump, that he said there may be a genocide. He didn't actually say that there is. He said there may be.
It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about, but it's a terrible thing that's taking place.
Yes. So he used the term, but Solidariteit and AfriForum never used the term.
Yeah.
However, now you've got this small group of people that somehow did not follow the news and what Solidariteit and AfriForum actually is trying to do. And they create a new narrative.
I think what they're suggesting is, well, you talk to the Americans, you're sitting in the White House, but you're not saying, you're not denying it. You're not saying the opposite either.
It comes down to what I feel, and this is my personal opinion, terminology. There is a disproportionate number of farmers being killed who are a certain race, when you put it as a grouping of people based on that race. Calling it genocide is not going to fit in, because genocide is a very particular thing. But there is a disproportionate number of farm murders. It comes down to the terminology of the process of a number of people that are being attacked and killed because they are in an area, rural areas being the place where they are, where there's no policing, and the policing seems like they don't really care. And this disproportionate value of people based on the population is where it feels that more of them are being killed in proportion to the rest of the people. Now, we know there's a lot of murders and crime in South Africa, but it feels like the government is choosing to ignore the farm murders by just, let's dilute it into the entire crime pool.
Let's go back to the fun part of the discussion. The fun part is there's this battle going on now between these signatories to this Afrikaner Declaration, and of course figures like Yaku and Kali and these chaps I see on X as well. They are hitting each other very hard. Yourself, how do you self-describe, self-define? Are you an Afrikaner? Are you a new Afrikaner? Are you a Boer? How do you?
I'm going to call myself Boer. Boer.
A Boer.
Yeah,
okay, a Boer.
A Boer. If you want to use the English version of it. The reason being that if you go look at a book by a Dr. Let's Pretorius called the Boere Book, and he actually did his dissertation on Boer versus Afrikaner.
Yeah.
And the difference between the two cultural groups and the people, etc. If you want to understand it in very basic terms, as I understand it and how I personally also feel about the history thereof, the old Boer republics were northern parts of Natal, and these were called the Boer republics. They weren't called the Afrikaner republics.
Yeah.
Transvaal, Free State, and then Stellaland and a couple of those northern Cape areas. So those were the Boer republics. And then you got the colonists, or the Kaapkolonie as they call it. Those were the Afrikaners. And after the Boer War, what happened? Everyone was just thrown into one pot. And the British gave the Afrikaners the mandate to rule over the Boers. And that is why you got the Cape Colony flag. If you look at the old Republic flag, you got the Cape Colony flag as the main flag. And then you got the little Natalia flag, or the British flag, the Union Jack, which was adopted as the Natalia flag, the Free State flag, and the Transvaal flag. They ruled the Afrikaners over the Boers for a long time. Boers consisted of many languages: French, German, English, and eventually Afrikaans. And unfortunately, out of that group also was born apartheid. Boers themselves never actually got involved in this whole apartheid fight, or the ruling party's fight.
Okay, I'm listening.
That's going to knock a couple of people when they actually hear this statement, but that's how I feel. It's a completely different grouping, you can almost say.
Yeah, but
the Boer is a much more subdued type person. They sit back and they watch.
Try to put your definition of at least the difference between the Boer and the Afrikaner for me, if you can, in terms of contemporary views of today. What does it mean today to be a Boer? And what does it mean today? Because I have to admit, I can understand emotionally the term Boer, the Boer people, the old independent Transvaal, etc., etc. I have an emotional connection with that, but I tend to call myself just an Afrikaner, and I tend to think that you're an Afrikaner if you speak if you grow up with the language, if you grow up within the culture. So how do you distinguish then in contemporary terms between the idea of a Boer versus an Afrikaner?
It comes down to a bit of a history thing, and this might become a long history lesson if I try to explain it. But basically, a Boer is not language bound.
Rissenburgse wêreld woon nou Jan van Til, orals bekend is die Bosveldbil,
Duits West-Afrika, and it was still Duits West-Afrika.
Yeah.
German West Africa.
Yeah.
And So you could be German, French, or from various countries who became this original core group of Boers who bought the land from various people and settled there in the original by buying land. And then other people came in and
But you cannot have, would a black person who might align with your ideology, might that person be called a Boer then as well? Or a colored person who might have grown up in an Afrikaner family and say share your political views or ideology, with that colored person then also have the right to claim a Boer identity?
theoretically it's possible, but there's still a whole development behind it, and I try and follow up on the information provided by, because I'm not a historian on these kind of things on the cultural level, etc. So when people ask me, "Are you Afrikaner?" etc., I say I'm a Boer, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because that's the identity I associate with.
Let me talk a little bit about your career. I want to find out who is Rian Roux. Rian, where did your career start?
In my mind, wasn't just about the art. It was about recording history.
Yeah.
And history became very important to me when I realized how easily history can be manipulated by external forces. And I attempted to start recording history, but at that time, there was nothing like YouTube. We had to put things on tapes, old videotapes, and then try and get the things distributed. It was very difficult to try and capture information and distribute it as a single person. And I realized that your history was being controlled by big media houses or people who had access to pay those people to create history and versions of history that they wanted to show the world. And at one stage, I think it was somewhere in 2002, I also realized that there was this right-wing element in the country that had things happening that no one really knew about. I happened to go to a meeting with my dad in Bloemfontein. We were still of Eugène Terre'Blanche. And I sat there watching this guy, and I had never heard of this guy, ever.
Yeah.
And he spoke, and I thought, wow, he's talking about so many things that no one seems to know anything about. Because he knows his history very well. He had a historical aspect of his opinion. And I didn't know, is this the truth or is it not? Eventually, I got to the point where I actually met Eugène Terre'Blanche. It was not from an ideological perspective. I never, even today, don't consider myself right-wing or far right-wing, or I would say I'm somewhere in the middle, maybe leaning a little to the right. But it's more of a curiosity in that this exists and it feels like something from this world belongs to me.
I also read somewhere that you became involved in some point with the Suidlanders as well, if I'm correct. Just for those who don't know the Suidlanders, I got it down here. The Suidlanders is a secretive Afrikaner survivalist network founded in 2009. You mentioned Gustav
Miller, yes.
Gustav Miller rallies, according to my information here, more than 100,000 members around the prophetic visions of a racial apocalypse in South Africa, mapping escape routes and bunkers in preparation for what they see as an inevitable white exodus from black majority rule. That's pretty dramatic stuff. That gives us an idea of that's the world in which you'll find yourself. Now, here's my question then. Photography, and through the lens, you got introduced to Terre'Blanche and to the right-wing spectrum of South Africa.
Yes.
And I am trying to understand from you, well, let's talk about Terre'Blanche.
Yes.
find attractive about Terre'Blanche, and what did you find attractive, what's specific about his philosophy? Enlighten me on why were you attracted to Eugène Terre'Blanche?
His knowledge. Actually, I was never that much in agreement with the ideology. But I did like the way he speaks, number one. And number two, his knowledge of history. He was an incredible historian, which a lot of people didn't realize about him. And I try to capture much of it as well. And I recorded DVDs and did sound recordings, etc., which unfortunately, due to an incident, was lost. And much of my history of recordings were lost in the same incident. But I did manage to record his last speech. But did I agree with him? Not in everything. I do like some of his ideas that the Boers deserve a portion of the country, if not, well, they wanted a larger part of the country. But I do believe that as a people, they do deserve a part of the country.
Yeah, yeah. You sent me, and thank you very much for that, a link to the very last speech of Eugène Terre'Blanche, which you filmed.
Yes.
So with your permission, I would like us to just take a short clip from this and share that with our viewers. But before we do that, just this question. Once again, I think I might have asked it, but let me just get clarity on this. You talk about you liked his style, you like the drama, I would imagine, with which he spoke.
Charisma.
The charisma. So I think the question here is, and I have asked it, but just give me clarity on that, is it the style, the character, the drama, the figure, the way in which he delivered his speeches that attracted you, the package? Or is it the content, the ideology that attracted you?
Let's say a bit of everything. Because even though I didn't agree with his entire ideology, I did agree with many aspects thereof, especially when he started pointing out the errors that the government is running into, which they're creating for themselves. And that's where the ANC now currently comes in, and which is why I created my channel the way I created it.
Okay, let's take a short look at, this is the well, you set it up for us, Rian. Give us an idea, when was this shot, the context of it, and then we'll take a look at a short clip from the speech.
It was a membership meeting in Witbank, which is now called Imalahleni. And there were, I think, about 400, 500, maybe 600 people at the meeting. The hall was pretty full. And these last words.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Waar is die veggees in die boer? Ons moet veg. Ons moenie dat ons plaasmense uitgemoor word nie. Ons moenie dat ons bure in die stede en die dorpe uitgemoor of verkragt word nie. Jy het gesien Sondag of wat 'n week gelede hoe 'n arme vrou 77 jaar vasgemaak is op haar bed vir 6 dae nadat die vuil goed met haar gedoen het wat hy wil. Sy bly lief om dit te kan vertel. Hier het gesien gister of eergister in die koerant. O, hoe die arme ou moedertjie sy arms en bene geswel het van die rieme waarmee hulle haar vasgemaak het, die toue. Sy moes daar lê, haar hande agter haar rug vasgemaak en sy leef. Watter vegtersgees moet dit nie wees nie. Dis nie nodig dat die goed gebeur nie. Ek het nie vir u 'n kitsoplossing nie. Ek het net vir u manne van staal, manne wat in Iran en Irak geveg het, manne wat bereid is, en hulle maak nie daaruit geld nie om te sê, kom, ek maak van jou 'n soldaat. En laat die perse sê, hier is, en hy is hier, en die skinderbekke is hier, en die verraaiers is hier, Laat die pers en die skinderbek en die verraaiers weet, dis klaar, ons is keelvol, ons gaan ons nie neer laat vermoor nie, ons gaan ons organiseer in brandwageenhede, en as daar aan een vrou geraak word, in Middelburg of in Krugersdorp, of waar ook al, hier sit 'n kommandant van die brandwag van Krugersdorp, en die knoppie word gedruk, dan sak ons soos aasvoëls toe, en ons slaan die hel uit hulle uit, net daar.
That's a clip from the last speech made by Eugène Terre'Blanche. Rian, are there still people today that, are there any leftovers of the Afrikaner weerstandsbeweging, the Afrikaner resistance movement? Are there still remnants of it today that exist?
I believe there are still. The leader currently is Steyn van Ronge. After there was a bit of a leadership struggle at one stage, but Steyn van Ronge still runs the AWB, but they are a very much reduced group of people. These organizations, and you will have to concur with me, a lot of the other right-wingers, let's say, right-wing minded people, how few right-wing organizations still exist. They've all either drastically shrunk or just completely disappeared. And I have a running theory on that, is that these organizations need money to run. It is expensive keeping an organization like that running. And the only reason the Suidlanders still exist is because of the huge number of people who still pay a membership fee every month. I think it's 65 Rand a month, but could have changed.
But they do still exist, the Suidlanders.
The Suidlanders still exist. They are massive. They're very big. They're very big. And but the reason is that many of their donors, the people who donate their money in South Africa, have all left. I would guess as many as 2 million of the people that originally were in right-wing groups, through fear-mongering of their own fault, exited the country.
So
do
you think if I get hold of the Suidlanders that they will talk to me?
They will probably put you in contact with one of their English. They've got an English guy, I can't remember his name now, but he will talk to you. But Gustav himself won't, unless you speak Afrikaans. He doesn't speak English at all. His English very shaky.
Okay, well, if it's a language thing, it's not. I'd love to find out just if they are still active and what it is that they are doing today and how they view South Africa as of this moment. Let's talk about your current show, the Rian Roux Show, and you say the other one is called the Suid-Afrikaanse.
Suid-Afrikaanse Saga.
I'll put the links down below anyway. What drove you to launch the Rian Roux Show in 24?
You know, my hate of politics.
Seem to be very busy with it, Rian.
No, here's the interesting thing. I was at let's say a braai, and I was discussing with another guy who was very involved in politics. And I said to him, I'm one of those guys, I don't vote. I haven't voted in years because everyone says, what's the use in voting? I don't get involved in politics because what's the use of politics? And at that one braai, he changed my mind. And he said, you know what, if you don't vote, someone else keeps voting. And the winning party actually has a stronger base the more people don't vote. Because you start diluting your opposition. And if you don't get involved in politics, politics continues happening. Plus, you now strengthen the rhetoric and the propaganda. If you don't oppose the propaganda runs over you. Let's say, for instance, and this letter is a classic example. if there weren't opposition persons like myself, Ernst Roux, AfriForum, all those other people, this letter,
Rian Roux.
yes, this letter would have, yes, Ronaldo Gous is a very verbal type guy, and I love his content because he says it as it is, and he will literally attack the person. He likes doing that. But if we didn't exist, this letter would just be accepted, and the world would see it and see, oh, that's what Afrikaners accept. Even though we have a large group, even if the masses say, but we don't agree with it, because no one actually stands up and says, but we don't agree.
Yeah.
There is never an opposition.
Yeah, yeah.
But I also realized I don't want to get involved with a specific group. I've been invited by a couple of groups to join them, etc. So, but I don't want to join a specific group because the problem is I get locked in. I want to remain the layman, and 100% independent.
Give me an idea. I'm trying to think of, what is the pulse of Afrikaners today? Are they with these 41 people that signed this letter now? Or are they with AfriForum, Solidarity, Ernst Roux, Kali Kriel, etc.? If you're amongst the community, I mean, break it down in percentages to me, if you can, because when I ask people the questions from the point of the viewpoints of a Solidarity or of an AfriForum, I'm very much told by many people, no, you're out of touch. You don't really know what's going on in South Africa anymore. So tell me.
Let's break an egg and make an omelette.
Okay.
It's all about fairness. And if you look at the general Afrikaner, boer even out there, they want fairness. Now, here is something very important to consider, and I want the left-wing type people to consider this. How did apartheid end? Who ended apartheid? Afrikaners ended apartheid. The people, the ANC, so much hate, ended apartheid. Our generation, our Gen Xers, I want to say, are the group of people that ended apartheid. Because if you go look at the system and how apartheid ended, enough people voted, and everyone hates them. There is a group of people that hates them, the ja-stemmers. I didn't get to vote in that process, but the ja-stemmers are the people, the majority Afrikaners who ended apartheid, but now they are hated for it. You have a group of people, Afrikaners, who didn't want apartheid. They ended apartheid. They were the majority. They were always the majority in the voting process. They ended apartheid, but they are hated for it. Well, if the ANC was really fair, as they claim to be, and gave the Afrikaners everything that they promised at CODESA and Section 235, etc., there wouldn't be a problem. But unfortunately, there is no fairness. If you take away BEE and you make everything skills sharing free, economic freedom, everything else under the ANC is free, except we don't have economic freedom. Afrikaners have no economic freedom because we are always under the shadow of BEE. But if you left everything free, you would not have a single Afrikaner saying, we don't want to stay in South Africa. If you take away corruption, the crime, etc., that's a governmental issue. But the rest that affects them as Afrikaners, if you made it fair, not a single one of them would stand up against the ANC. They would say, you go ahead and rule.
I mean, you know what you say. The claim you make is you say it was we, the Afrikaners, that voted yes in the referendum. So thereby we should get the credit for ending apartheid. That's more or less what you're saying. But then you're also saying that there were promises made, and at the same time, well, it seems that 235 is one promise that's not kept. So
it wasn't kept.
I'm still not sure quite where does the majority.
And this is the thing. I'm a middle ground type person with a little right leaning. If there are those people who want to be far right into a folk start, put them there. Put them there. And you know, everyone who wants to go there, let them go there. But why make such a big issue out of it? Or the same thing with Orania. Orania is a success story, but you don't see me running there. You don't see the entire South Africa running to Orania. It is an idealistic thing for them, but I don't want to be there. So that's why I say the whole section 235. Create a folk start as promised in the Northern Cape as it was originally agreed to, or whatever, or get down to a negotiation for it. Speak to the people and go there and let those people do their thing, govern themselves, because that was the agreement. The same thing with AfriForum and Solidariteit. The government should engage them. Currently, the government only fights them. They don't engage them. They constantly only fight, rather than trying to engage them and tell them how can we make things fair. But why do they refuse to engage with two of the largest groups that represent a big chunk of the Afrikaner people in South Africa? Why does the government refuse to engage with them?
You're saying to me that the majority of Afrikaners would be happy within this new democracy, under an ANC government for that matter, but the ifs are, let's get rid of black economic empowerment, let's not have a corrupt government as we have it today. If it's a fair government and a fair shot for everybody, we're quite happy to be part of this model. Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much, yes. If it was a fair government that gave every Afrikaner a fair chance at economic freedom in South Africa, no problem.
Yeah, yeah. And that
I believe most of South Africans, not just Afrikaners, most South Africans in South Africa would feel comfortable with that idea. But the problem is there is a revenge that wants that the ANC is fighting for a revenge, and that is where the problem comes in. And BEE is a revenge tactic.
So you're saying to me that the majority of Afrikaans-speaking people and the majority of white people in South Africa are, in fact, very happy with the idea of, let's use the word rainbow nation again, that we're happy to live in this rainbow nation, provided it's a fair rainbow nation, provided it gives everybody equal opportunity, that it is really a post-apartheid government. That's what I hear you say.
Yes, yes. Without sounding liberal, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty liberal, I would imagine, whether you like it or not. Okay.
It's liberal sounding, but you know, if you really go and think about it, what would I be fighting if everything in this country was fair on that basis?
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, you know, I'm because recently I spoken to a member of Media 24, News 24, whatever they call themselves, and I put the idea on the table that it seems to me that there's a lot of people in South Africa that is agitating for a devolution of power. There's a lot of talk about, an own space, cultural spaces, etc., etc. There's a lot of fingers being pointed to us here in Europe, saying, "Well, look at your own states there. Multiculturalism is doomed. It will never work. It's an impossibility." And then I'm being told by this particular member of News 24 that I spoke to, that's saying, "Well, that's all nonsense. We are in South Africa very happy to actually build and further the ideals of the Rainbow Nation as it was constructed in the first place."
The theory thereof is idealistic, maybe, but unfortunately, due to certain policies imposed by the ANC government, especially when it comes to BEE and a couple of other things, these. Okay, they call them race-based laws because they are actually race-based laws, these 140 plus things, which are literally connected to the color of your skin. And that is where the problem comes in. And now their excuse is, but in apartheid years, you had similar laws. That is not an excuse. It's also not a justification. It's a revenge. You want to punish us, me. You want to punish me. Why do you want to punish me? Oh, because your parents, your forefathers did this to us. Say, yes, that's them. I know. I wasn't involved in that. I was involved in the generation that ended apartheid. Now you want to punish me for ending it, for bringing you into a world which you can have a success now, and now you want to hit on me for that. That's basically what I'm fighting for. You know, if I was living in a country where I could go out and find a job anywhere without having to qualify BEE, then I would be happy. Because my kids, the other thing is, let's take schools as an example. Why try and change Afrikaans schools to English schools when you can build another school, even if you build that other school right next to the Afrikaans school? The government doesn't, and this is an example of the revenge that they are trying to exact on the Afrikaner people. They know they have a schooling problem. Rather than build new schools, they try and just change the existing Afrikaans schools to English schools, which feels to the general Afrikaner out there, you're taking away something we had. Stop taking away things. Build new things, because then you would really become a constructive government.
What do you say? What would you say to those people that say that black economic empowerment is really created to try to assist those that were marginalized in the past?
What they call a redress.
A redress. Yes. That it is a fact that if you look at unemployment numbers, I think black youth unemployment is 50%, outrageous. Unemployment in general,
possibly closer to 60%. Yes.
Yeah, closer to 60%. However, white unemployment is only 7%. If you look at, there's a statistic that I read the other day, of all the managers in South Africa, 65% of them, people that hold managerial posts in South Africa, are white. Whilst you've got a population that reflects exactly the opposite. If you look at the statistics in terms of the differences between what the average black family takes home and has to survive on a monthly basis, it's 5 times less than that a white family would take home on a monthly basis. If you look at all those statistics, then you understand to a certain extent why government is set on actually changing those numbers.
The problem is BEE has not created an opportunity for young black people to be uplifted. It is a generational thing, and until you all this money and all the stuff that they've spent on BEE, they could have been building schools.
Do you think it's a realistic goal to get rid of BEE in its entirety, or do you think BEE is something that we're going to have to accept that we will live with for the next probably 100 years, but we can maybe refine it and retune it and make it more honest and less corrupt?
You know what I feel personally? Drop it completely. You know what's going to happen when you drop BEE completely? I think is people in businesses will start becoming friends. And when you have friends in business, you start growing businesses.
My reaction to that would be that I would also love to live in a world in which there is absolutely no BEE. And I personally think that BEE robs you also of your best. If you don't employ the best man for the job, it robs you of talent. I don't think that's very healthy. But there is a political majority in the country that is more than 60% that favors BEE in some form or another. So I just think it's unrealistic to think that we're going to get rid of it as it is today. I think, yes, we can change it, one can tame it, but I don't think it's politically feasible or achievable.
That would be the ideal. The other option is to start looking at something that, like the BE has proposed with this, what did they call it? They actually gave it a very nice name, which they propose as a policy to replace BEE. With a couple of tweaks, that might actually work.
Yeah.
It's a diluted version, let's say, of BEE, where it maybe still has advantages, but it's a fairer system of BEE. But what has the ANC come and said? We're not even looking at it. They refuse to even look or consider the policy. They outright just rejected it.
Yeah. Let me just talk about the Afrikaner for one moment. I think we're out of time anyway. I think we're way over time here. Do you believe, we've had this discussion a little bit, do you think that the Afrikaner is being targeted? And then let me refine the question a little bit by adding that I don't hear many English South Africans expressing the same kind of sentiments than particularly Afrikaners do in South Africa.
I think the English South Africans don't really have a voice out there as the Afrikaners. The Afrikaners are maybe a little more of a aggressive type that are, you've pushed us too far, and now we're going to start lashing back in the form of even Ronaldo Gous as an example, and Willem Petzer and those type of people. So we start coming back with counter arguments and saying, but hold on, we don't agree with you.
What do you think? And then we're going to end the discussion of this. Right. What do you think are the major threats against the Afrikaner today? Where do you see it? I know, I can tell you right now, we'll probably talk about Bella, the future of the Afrikaans language, the erasure of the South African history by in our school books today. But what do you think are the most urgent threats that face the Afrikaner today?
The major threat Afrikaner and Afrikanerdom in South Africa has is the animosity from the government. The ANC government refuses to speak in Afrikaans to Afrikaners as groups. They will, here and there, Cyril Ramaphosa will address some people in clownish fashion in Afrikaans, because he can speak a little Afrikaans. But why don't they engage Afrikaner groups? And that is what I feel is our biggest threat. It's a threat everyone is ignoring or doesn't even see. I've got no idea why people aren't seeing it, but why the government has this constant animosity towards Afrikaans and Afrikaners and their organizations.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you just to qualify that for me. You use the word animosity. Where does that animosity express itself in terms of your Afrikaner identity from the government's stance? I mean, let me say the ups here, Rian. We publish more Afrikaans books than ever before.
Oh, yes.
The language is more free than ever before. There are more Afrikaans music festivals than ever before. I get the impression that Afrikaners are flourishing as well. At least a huge proportion of Afrikaners are flourishing very well. And if I have to, just for the fun of it, dissect a little bit, reflect upon this discussion you and I've had right now, I get the impression that you are quite a sort of a left-leaning person who embraces the idea of the multicultural democracy in South Africa.
Let me put it
the image I had before I started this conversation.
Very much, if you go watch my videos, you'll see that I'm not, but I would love to be. I would love to be. You know what? I'm like any other person who would love freedom. I don't have a problem with any black person. I don't have a problem. And I would love to have those people as friends. That is not the problem. The problem is that when I talk in any group or I respond to comments on news articles in social media, immediately the race card is pulled, especially when I talk Afrikaans. The moment you speak Afrikaans on social media, it is automatically assumed that you are a racist. Oh, you're one of those apartheid people, or, apartheid is thrown at you the whole time. I don't care. It's been forced down my throat so many times. And the reasons Afrikaans people are surviving is because they are supporting each other. They've become a survivalist group supporting each other. And it will remain so until the last Afrikaner is no longer alive in South Africa, because we are survivalists. But the problem is the group is shrinking. And
Rian, let me. This came into my mind now. I just wonder whether these things that you talk about, it's in your face. This kind of. I had an interview with a black chap who said to me, this milking of the guilt of the Afrikaner is nothing but a street trick by the black man. They milking our feeling of guilt towards and responsibility towards our history. But I just wonder, isn't that something that you experience maybe on social media, but on the street level? I don't know if that's
no. Look, the government has created assumptions about white people, and the assumption is that white people have money, and that money belongs to us or our people, because that money was taken away from our people. However, most white people don't necessarily have the money that people assume they have. A classic example is when you come to Klerksdorp, and I dare anyone to come to Klerksdorp and walk the two main streets, OR Tambo and Anderson Street. Come walk those streets from one side to the other side, talking on your phone with your buddy, like we used to 15, 20 years ago, without issue. Now, I can guarantee you, when you walk past Home Affairs, you will not reach the end of that block without your phone being stolen.
Yeah.
If you're a white man. However, if you're a black man, the chances of that happening is quite a bit less. I'm not going to say it's zero, but it's quite a bit less. But it's a target. You make yourself a target purely because of the color of your skin. It's unfair, but it's the reality. It is that there's an assumption that has been created by the government, and here I squarely blame the ANC that have made promises and created this assumption that white people have the money that they owe you, but we don't. They keep dictating. The government dictate to Afrikaners the whole time, but they refuse to listen to anything coming back. They refuse to read the comments, and they refuse to engage and say, but hold on, what did you say there? Ernst Roux? Come sit here right next to the president and tell him what the problems are.
And I'm going to close with this then, really, because I think we can continue like this for another hour. But wouldn't if government says to Ernst Roux right now, Mr. Roux, here is what we expect of you right now, and that is we kind of would like it if you go to Washington next time and you go to the White House to actually say to the White House, to use the words and say to President Trump, Mr. Trump, there is no genocide in South Africa, a proactive stance. I have a feeling that that's what government would like to have. I have a feeling that there within lies the possibility of cooperation.
Yes. However, doing that would become a dictation again. What government needs to do is to say to Ernst Roux, come sit with us at Dirko and discuss with us what it is that we can work together to send a delegation of you as a representative party, perhaps one person from Solidariteit, one from AfriForum, and our group. And we sit down in a cuddle puddle beforehand, and we agree to what it is that are the issues between us and our people that we represent. And we go there as a representative group. That will work. Rather than being dictated to by the government. Because the ANC currently even shows it in the GNU, that they are dictating. That's a discussion from another.
Anyway, I noted down here for myself, Rian, just to end this with, while we're fighting, I had an overview of the black media. I talk about this Declaration of 41, and I see on social media, I see this battle going on between these two groups, and I can't quite puzzle out exactly who's now representing who anymore. But I had a look at what the black commentators are saying. And, you know, mostly they're saying, well, the Afrikaners are making a lot of noise, but in the process, they are actually self-sabotaging. They're actually destroying their own unity.
Unfortunately.
I got it written down here. An overview of black media shows that black commentators call all of this noise self-sabotaging white hysteria and warns against toxic Afrikaner exceptionalism. That's the irrelevant noise of a tiny white minority with a big megaphone. What's your reaction to that?
I absolutely agree with that. And unfortunately, it is government designed. Oh, you know that the whole thing of Derko actually designed this letter?
I read yeah. No, I'm aware of all of this. I just really want to reach a point where we say, well, let's have a look. Let's end like this. Here I've just spoken to a guy that the perception of would be that he is sitting on the right-wing spectrum of South African politics. My little hour of discussion with me revealed to me a South African who is quite happy to move beyond apartheid and is quite happy to live within a multiracial society, a multicultural society, a democracy, but demands a democracy in which fairness is the measure by which we govern ourselves. That's what I hear from you.
Yes.
Rian Roux, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and may your podcasts or your podcasts go well.
Thank you, Rian.